Good morning and welcome to our fifth and final session of the Spring 2021 Nonprofit Management Institute. We made it. We're in the home stretch now. Today's session will bring human resource and our graduation ceremony, which we're really excited for. Wanted to go ahead and pass it off to Jean so she can give a brief welcome to everyone.
Thank you, Rebecca. And yes, welcome everyone again. This is our fifth and final session of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits Institute for Nonprofit Management, and you all made it. So congratulations. And at the end of our program today, we'll have a really nice graduation recognizing all of you and each of you. I would especially like to, again, always thank our partners and our sponsors, the Triangle Community Foundation and the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, each of whom have been with us in our first class as well as through this one. And so we want to thank you again for supporting this work. Before I hand it back over to Rebecca, I would like to also introduce to you all, first ever, our new Chief Learning Officer, who has been with you actually through this class. Her name is Lisa Crossland. She's our new Chief Learning Officer. And Lisa, if you would like to just say hello and so people can welcome you.
Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well on this nice, bright, sunny day. I'm excited to be part of the center. I've been learning a lot through the Institute and enjoying myself just as you all have been. Glad to get to graduation day. So I'm excited and hope to get to meet you, to continue to see you and meet each and every one of you at some point in the future. Thank you again. Thanks, Jean.
Thanks, Lisa. And so Rebecca, I pass it on back to you and we'll see you. I'll be on through the program. I'll be muted and I might turn off my video, but I'm here. And I look forward to seeing everybody during the graduation. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jean. And Lisa, we're delighted to have you. I'm getting just a few more folks in. You can see our agenda is pulled up on the screen. And we've got, as always, we're packing things in. We are going to start off with a review and reflection of session 4. We'll get into content around human resources. We'll have a break before graduation, and then we'll continue on with the session through closing. So Dr. Palmer, I'm going to pass it on to you to get us rolling.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fifth and final session of the Nonprofit Management Institute. We have one more capacity building topic related to managing nonprofits before we enter into our graduation ceremony, and we are all looking forward to that. And so as Rebecca indicated, you can see in terms of our agenda today, we are going to focus on human resources, then we're going to graduate, and then we will officially close out the Institute for this spring 2021. Our human resources agenda is divided into 3 parts: recruitment, retention, and reward. And we're going to walk through each of these elements of human resources. We're going to do a little bit of breakout sessions. You're going to work with your handouts and your worksheets that we sent to you. So just as we have in the other sessions, we'll be referring to those. So again, what we want to start off with is looking at the doing just a little bit of a review. So we can, if we could, go to the Principles and Practices Guide slide. Yeah. So this is the Principles and Practices Guide, as you know. This publication guides all of our work. It is divided into 12 principles. This institute highlighted and trained us on 6 of those. And of course, as I mentioned before, we're concluding with human resources for today, but not concluding forever, right? Because stay tuned down the road. There will be other sessions that we'll add in terms of topics. So we talked about how to use this guide, that there are primary principles, and then there is a primary practice for each principle. We look across our frames of build, thrive, and sustain to determine the current management condition of our nonprofits within those areas. We do some noting of that, and then the ultimate goal is to begin to enhance our capacity and do some capacity building. It might be training like we're doing in this institute, but it could also be technical assistance or coaching or consultation that your nonprofit might engage in to enhance your capacity. So just as a little bit of a reminder, this guide is available on the NC Center's website. For those of you who are members, you do have digital access to a copy of this guide, and also this guide can be purchased in hard copy form. You can consult with Rebecca as it relates to that if you're interested in hard copies of the guide. So in terms of just kind of where we started and what the focus is, the Principles and Practices Guide. In terms of review and reflection of session 4, so our training, our last session was on financial management and fundraising. And those two topics go together for a reason. It is important, as we mentioned last week, to consider the way in which we manage our finances, in addition to in alignment with what our goals are in terms of fundraising. There should be a connection there. The other thing I want to mention here is we should definitely be exercising and employing financial management practices. Tracy, our Chief Financial Officer at the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, joined us last week to help us to better understand what some of those practices are. But we should also kind of keep in mind that, we should be doing more than bookkeeping and record keeping. And financial management implies we're doing review, analysis, trying to understand our finances in a way to, one, help us sustain our nonprofits, but also, again, to align with what our fundraising goals are and to inform what our fundraising goals are. So they definitely go together. Ultimately, we want to diversify where our dollars are coming from. So from a financial management perspective, we want to look at ways that we can generate revenue and to diversify that. So to give us an image of that or a picture of that, I've asked Rebecca to share with us the page or the portion or section of the annual report of the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization that we referenced when we were learning about the financial management documents and also financial reporting. We went over 4 different types of reports and we borrowed from their public domain of information. So when you look at this image, if we're just wanting to just kind of bring some closure to the financial management and fundraising areas of managing a nonprofit, it's important to really work towards diversifying where your dollars are coming from. And the theory is, or the best practice that is communicated to us often, is to not have more than 1/3 of your dollars coming from one source. So that if something were to happen, your organization would not fold from a financial standpoint because you would have dollars coming from a variety of sources. So when you look at this picture, you can see that there's, for the most part, 4 different areas of bringing dollars in. Well, 5 here, but in terms of the endowment, I kind of set that apart just a little bit. But if you look at the individual contributions for this particular nonprofit, you can see that individual contributions were at 40%. Their grants, which is the corporations, foundations, and government, was 23%. Notice grant dollars was less than fundraising dollars, or those dollars that came by way of individual contributions. We know that majority of nonprofits, those that are at a sustainable level, oftentimes the picture is that there are more individuals contributing. And theoretically, we know, and even there is some research that supports that a lot of our nonprofits are benefiting from the individual contribution as opposed to grants or as opposed to some other source. So that's an important takeaway, you know. And remember, we also worked on prospecting and how to generate a prospect list. The reason we did that is to help us to begin to think about those individual donors and to bring them in maybe on an impulse, but graduate them to habitual and thoughtful giving. And so that's that 40% that you see in this picture. Then in terms of special events and net revenue for this particular nonprofit, it appears from this picture here, it appears that there's a significant amount of activity around special events that actually bring revenue. Now we could look a little closer to see specifically what they do, but that appears to be dollars that they're bringing in exchange for something that they're providing. That's always a win, you know, if you have something that you can offer for sale. And then of course, there's the corporations and foundations and the government grant opportunities at 23%. We have the Big Brothers Big Sister. Well, no, what is BBS? I can't see. Well, there's a foundation, it appears here, that they are generating dollars from. And then there's some other revenue. Again, we could break this down and we could see exactly where those dollars are coming from. Notice that there's endowment here. There is a endowment dollars and appropriation there, looks like at about $170,000 a year. So that means they have a few million in that endowment portfolio in order for them to be generating $170,000 a year, because that's a percentage of the endowment dollars that they're able to obtain. So I wanted us to kind of leave the financial management and fundraising area of management by looking at this picture, because this is what we want to work towards. Another theoretical element of this that this picture supports is the idea that the number one place that through research, that the number one place that nonprofits receive their giving from is individuals. There it is, number one here. And then the next is through corporations and the like. So this picture here is a true indication of what we see and what we have seen in terms of diversifying dollars. So take a picture of this screen, carry it around in your phone. This is what you want to work towards. You really want to diversify where your dollars are coming from. Rebecca, you can go back to gallery, and I'll take any questions before we move into the human resources topic, or comments about that image, because that is the goal. That's the picture that we're trying to work towards. Any questions?
Well, I've got a comment. I was particularly taken, good morning, everyone. I was particularly taken about the whole discussion last week about diversifying revenue, being a part of an organization that has been very one-sided. So I really have been giving a lot of thought to that. So I'm so glad to hear that you brought that up again, because that diversification is key.
Are there any other comments about about where we landed here in terms of that picture. The other thing I will say is some of us may be kind of sitting here thinking to ourselves, how in the world will I get there? how is that going to happen? Time, patience, and strategy. Time, patience, and strategy. You know, nothing happens overnight, but that is the goal. It takes time. You have to be patient. And then you have to be very strategic about what dollars you're receiving, why you're receiving those dollars, what impact are those dollars going to make. Are the dollars that you're receiving from all of, say, the grants and contracts that you have, are those dollars really making a difference and impacting your organization's bottom line the way that you need it to? Or is it just eating up your time managing, doing the administration of those dollars? And those are decisions that you have to make internally in terms of what your approach is going to be and what practices you're going to engage in so that you can generate that type of picture. It is important to get those individual contributions up. That is very important, to try to get those as significantly percentage-wise to be at the top of your giving strategy. And the last thing I'll say, you have a handout titled Pyramid of Giving. And it shows, we referenced significantly annual giving last week. But notice there are two other levels once you get the annual giving element of your strategy in place. And that is major giving and estate giving. So you're building, you know, and trying to kind of get there. Again, you may be wondering, or you may be asking yourself, well, how am I going to get there? You can do it. Time, patience, and strategy. You can definitely do it. You just have to keep working at it, and eventually it does happen. Any other comments before we move on to human resources?
Dr. Palmer, this is Phil with the City of Belmont. One thing that we've recently faced that we haven't faced in the past in soliciting support from foundations and other organizations. As a result of COVID, a lot of them have really changed their focus or have a very targeted focus on what their funds will go towards. And so we're getting a absolute, just a no, we can't support you this year. And so I don't know if anyone else has also experienced that. And if you can provide any kind of feedback or comments on how to, seek out other additional support, or how to, because that is a challenge that we have faced over the last couple of months.
Is there anyone who has faced that challenge that you have put some things into play that might be helpful? What are some of you doing to respond and to pivot, if you will?
Pivot is a good word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll jump in again. At the YWCA in Greensboro, we are just starting a new campaign to raise a generous amount of money pretty quickly, that we're calling it Preserve the Legacy. So just to come up with new ideas, some new way to spark interest in the community that you're serving. Just to find anything that might appeal to those stakeholders and those allies of yours could make a difference.
Hi, this is Monica at Safe Space. I just have a quick question. Is there a database that anybody is using to maintain donor information? Because we're here in Franklin County, still get checks in the mail, addresses, don't really have email, emails from donors and things like that. So are there databases that folks can recommend?
This is Jane with United Way of Greater High Point. We have been using for years a system called UPIC. It's a fantastic database that I know a lot of United Ways across the country use. And it really is, and then through that, we have a system called Andar. Andar is really the database, and it's really quite user-friendly, and we can run reports easily from it. And again, I know that they work a lot in the United Way space, but that may be something that you can check out.
And there is a comment in the chat, Salesforce. There is a comment there, I guess, kind of steering away from that one. That's at least one opinion. And then there's Donor Perfect is another one.
Thank you, guys.
eTapestry is another. Is there anyone who uses eTapestry on the call? The main thing, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Palmer, eTapestry or the Blackbaud products are great. They just tend to be a little pricey.
Mm-hmm. The main thing is the interfacing of the system, you know, that it interfaces with your financial management. Because if you're keeping up, let's just say if you have 4 or 5 campaigns that you do every year, or 4 or 5 different fundraising, let's just say activities or programs, then you're collecting those dollars and you're storing those dollars. If you're using QuickBooks, if you're using QuickBooks for nonprofits, you're probably classifying those different fundraising programs. And so you want to think about how will this database system interface with your financial management system or your financial management software that you're using. And so one, so that it works for you, but 2, so you're not paying double for those subscribed platforms that can become a little bit pricey. So you want to make sure that all of those are interfacing. And the people that are managing each, especially if you have different people managing your say, donor database, is a different person that is, say, managing your QuickBooks or your financial management data system, then you want to make sure they're talking and that they're interacting, you know, so that everything is working, you know, to get you to that end goal of really, really having your money work for you. Any other comments about financial management and fundraising before we go into our human resources topic of the day? Wow, it's already 10 o'clock. Can you believe it? It's already 10. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, give you time to just kind of get settled in for the human resources topic. Some of you have maybe had to scurry onto the call. So this will kind of give you just a little bit of a breather, and we'll transition back, Rebecca, at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, and we'll kick off with human resources.
Great, sounds good. We'll see you back here in 5. And we're good to go.
Okay, so we're going to get started on our human resources topic. And we're going to jumpstart this with focusing on the first handout that you have in your packet. And it's titled Federal Statutes Related to Equal Employment Opportunity. And we have a single sheet there to provide you with a quick reference. And so this is a neat go-to and a good starting point to begin to think about the approach that you're going to take and what type of, I'll just say, vibe you'll have in terms of how you manage the individuals that are helping out, be it paid staff or volunteers, or consultants, or individuals who might be supporting your nonprofit organization. So again, the handout is the Equal Employment Opportunity. These are federal statutes. If you notice at the top of the handout, you'll see EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. You'll see EEOA, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. And then you'll see EEOL, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Law. And so the way we look at these is that the commission serves as an advocate and serves as an advocacy type entity for paid individuals and volunteers, by the way. And the act is the policy that guides that. That's the legislative policy. And then, of course, the law is the legal element of it. And so, you know, oftentimes with our nonprofit organizations, we may not have the luxury of having a person whose only job is personnel administration. And so it may be the executive director or president and CEO that's helping with that. If your staff is of significant size, you might have a COO or someone who is doing that work, or the work of personnel administration might be divided across multiple positions. Nonetheless, the law still applies. And so it's important to at least be familiar with these, not necessarily that you are a labor attorney, but that you do recognize and understand what these different elements of equal employment, what it means. And so we've provided this for you so that you can have this as a quick reference. It's got the, we've listed the different acts, the dates that those acts were established, and a brief description of each one of those. We've also provided a link so that you can go directly to that information. So, so it is important to definitely keep these pieces of significant information at the ready, you know, and reference these and become familiar so that you are being appropriate as you are trying to manage your staff and manage and support your other stakeholders. Very, very important. The other part of this that we want to encourage you to adopt is equity, diversity, and inclusion as a policy. In our North Carolina Center's Principles and Practices Guide on page 9, there is kind of our overview of how we are sharing and explaining building capacity as it relates to equity, diversity, or inclusion, or some might say EDI. And so you can see that the primary practice is to promote and adopt policies and procedures that help our nonprofits create a more inclusive and equitable culture. You want to underline culture because that's what we're talking about here. Some of your organizations are a little further along than others with this, with the current climate in terms of this focus on social justice, you know, eliminating and eradicating racism. There's a lot of emphasis. The climate is very attentive to this at the present time. A lot of our organizations are making some major changes as a result of that. So the decision has to be made by those in leadership, yourself included, your board, and some of your other key staff even, you know, who do we want to be as it relates to EDI? Who do we want to be? How do we want to present ourselves as a nonprofit doing work in our community? What do we want that to look like? What is going to be our EDI personality or our EDI persona? Who do we want the community to, how do we want the community to identify or link us to EDI? And so if I could just hear from some of you what you're doing to make that transition, if in fact this is something that you've decided that what you want to do, or maybe for some of you it may be a challenge. So if we could go back to gallery, Rebecca, and feel free to use the chat if you'd like. And yeah, just anyone can jump in. I think I hear some.
Hey, good morning. So one of the things that, so I'm here representing the NARAL Pro-Choice North Carolina board. And that work for us, like, and being an anti-racist organization, an organization that centers racial justice and racial equity, has really gone through a very long process of being intentional about that at the very granular level, from hiring questions to questions that show up on our board application, conversations with funders. You know, I talk a lot about making sure we internalize our external mission, right? Like, you can't, you can talk about it and say you're doing social justice, but if you're doing it in a white-centered way and you're doing it in a way where you're not internalizing that for your staff and your policies and the way you show up, you're still causing harm, right? And so I won't say that we're perfect by a long shot, but we have really made some major moves to center racial justice in the external work and the internal workings of the organization. And Blueprint has been a good partner in that. I don't know if any of y'all are a part of the Blueprint organization, but they've had a lot of trainings and a lot of resources around that. But it's been a big process, but it's been really meaningful. And we've seen a lot of changes and had a lot of external partners take note of that and feel seen in a new way. And so it's been a really important thing. So.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Palmer, one thing that our nonprofit, Downtown Belmont Development Association, is the nonprofit partner to our city's Main Street program. We work collectively in developing our annual work plan every year, and in thinking through inclusion and diversity. We really spell that out in our annual work plan as far as targeting, diversity businesses and recruiting them. And so we built that into our annual work plan. And so, and we utilize our work plan. And so when you're seeing it and sharing it and talking about it, I think that helps to keep it on the forefront of our working. So if others haven't done that, I strongly encourage you to really include that in your work plan for your whole board and your working committees to really see and work it.
It does make sense to have it in writing so you can talk it and walk it, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So we have a couple of comments in the chat, I think, Rebecca.
Yes, I was going to mention Veronica shared a resource in the chat, and you had your hand raised. Veronica, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Veronica?
She might not be available right now.
Okay, okay.
I was waiting just to see.
Okay, no worries, yeah.
And Sarah, it was clear and evident in your graduation video recording that you all have done a lot of work around that. I could tell by the way you talked about it that it was clearly embedded in what you all are doing. So it was nice to see that. Yeah, we've got folks saying it's a work in progress, right? This work continues, and we sort of infuse it in everything that we're doing. And it starts to give us a different lens to look at things, which can be eye-opening, can be difficult at times, but it's really important work. The center does have under special projects our work around that topic, and guidance for nonprofits is called Walking the Talk. And it's a great starting point if you want to reference that. I'll go ahead and put the link to that in the chat so you all can, you can bookmark that and put it in your browser for future reference. But yes, nice work.
Okay. Okay, so our topic around human resources, as I mentioned earlier, is divided into 3 sections. It's recruitment, retention, and reward. And so we're gonna do some work in those areas to help us to become or build our capacity in this area of human resources. So in terms of recruitment, if we could go to the PowerPoint slide. In terms of recruitment, we're going to focus on creating a job or a position within your nonprofit organization. And we're going to utilize the example of the executive director or the president and CEO. We're going to work on identifying roles and responsibilities of that position. You have a template in your packet, a worksheet. You actually have 2. One is titled the job description worksheet, roles and responsibilities. The other is titled worksheet job description format. That's the template. Then we're going to spend some time reviewing a link on compensation and looking at determinants of compensation. That's also a handout that I'm going to reference in your packet. And then hiring practice and living wage, and how we are responding to both of those in terms of human resources. Now, again, think about this in the other way that we talk about human resources is personnel administration, because there is this administrative part of managing the people who are helping us do the work that we're doing every day. And this is also true for volunteers. It's not just for individuals who are paid that are a part of our organizations. Our volunteers also should have job descriptions, and we should lay out their roles and responsibilities. The same is true for board members. That should be the case there as well. So in terms of just thinking about recruitment, like I said, we're going to focus on the job description and making sure that those are in place. That is the starting point to recruit, because we need to know exactly who, what kind of skills we need and what type of individual in terms of professional skills, knowledge, expertise that we need in terms of fulfilling a particular position in our nonprofit organizations. So Rebecca, you can go back to gallery view. So again, we're going to focus on the executive director position. And you have a worksheet titled Job Description Worksheet. We have 6 questions that we want you to answer related to this particular position. So of course, we all know this is the person, this is the title that's generally given to the individual who is leading and managing a nonprofit organization. So that's the title, the executive director. And then we want you to just bullet point your thoughts about what is the purpose of this position from your perspective. So what is the purpose of this position? What would this person do on a daily basis? What is your thoughts about that? Now, if you are working in this role, you have a little bit of an edge, right, on the rest of us. But the 4th is what skills. So underline that, what skills are necessary. And if you want to incorporate here, if you want to put education, you can. And if you want to put, if you want to add expertise, you can, you know. So if you want to do that. And then the 5th question is, how many hours per day, week are required to complete this work, your opinion of the executive director, and who will supervise this person? So who will hold this person accountable? So let's just take a few minutes to fill this in. Rebecca, I don't know if you can cue up some music for us while we do this. maybe a little bit of jazz. Is anybody okay with that while we do? Well, I see Kelly nodding and saying yes. I see Ann is nodding, saying yes. I didn't tell Rebecca that's what we were doing, so that's why I just kind of felt it. So
Sure thing. Yeah, I can go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
I'll take the reins from you, Leslie, for the music part, and then you can take it back for the slideshow.
I'm about to drink some mud, and I think you should. For just $67, you can make as
Okay, we can go back to gallery view, Leslie or Rebecca. Thank you. So let's get a little bit of feedback as far as kind of what you came up with. So we were focusing on the position of the executive director. And so what is the purpose of that position in a nonprofit? What are your thoughts about that? What's the purpose? What's their purpose? And you can feel free to unmute yourself and share.
Dr. Palmer, I had providing leadership and oversight of day-to-day operations of the organization.
Okay, so leadership and oversight, okay? I see some feedback in the chat from our Chief Learning Officer. Let me go back over here. To articulate the vision, mission theory of change and overall strategy of the agency. That strategy element of it is very key. The executive director should be the lead strategist, really, and informing the board and staff and volunteers that are going to help carry out that work. Now, you know, the debate is that the role in terms of understanding the role between the executive director and say the board chair and or board members. I think it's important to reiterate as much as possible that it is the responsibility of the executive director to manage the day-to-day operations, and that you put into place guidelines that support that so that there's no confusion as to who has what role. And sometimes that gets a little tricky when you have, let's just say, a board chair that doesn't understand that their role is not the day-to-day operations, but their role is as, who said it a second ago, to lead and provide, is to provide the oversight part. That was Terry. You know, boards are in place to ensure governance and oversight. It's the executive director that carries that work out. And that's what you hire them to do. I don't know, Rebecca, if there are any other comments in the chat about that. In terms of that second question, the purpose of this position.
Looks like we'll also add, this is from Bethany, that they're responsible for ensuring that funding is in place to carry out the mission. Jane mentioned make certain the work of each department aligns with the organization's mission. Andres said to help put order and structure.
Thank you. Thank you. So our next question is, what would this person do on a daily basis? Boy, that's a loaded question for those of you who are in that role. What would this person do on a daily basis? The one thing I'll say about that previous question, my position on what the purpose of the CEO or the executive director is to do both lead and manage. You have to do both. And there is a difference. You know, lead, to me, that leadership part is kind of the soft skills, right? You know, being able to facilitate and coordinate and bring people together and, you know, get the most, right, out of the people that we're interacting with in terms of results. Then that management element is when you hold folks accountable and you are, you know, meeting these equal employment opportunity laws and policies and all of that. That's the management side of it. So I view it as being both. It's not either or, it's both, especially in a nonprofit organization. And then, of course, here we go. What would this person do on a daily basis? That's loaded. So I can't wait to hear. Where are my executive directors at? What are you doing on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Ooh. This is Monica, guys. So we are supervising and evaluating. We are doing staff development. We're doing program development. We are participating in collaborative efforts that benefit the mission of the organization.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for giving us the short list. What didn't she? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to second that. I am not formally an executive director because at YNPN Triangle, our board, we're a working board, which is similar to a lot of organizations, but our 501 is run by us. So in terms of what does an executive director do day to day, I am doing a part-time job at Stand Up Speak Out while also maintaining a full nonprofit. So all of the things Monica mentioned in terms of a short list, but what I take the most stock in is really that leadership component, because also we went from a board of 19 to a board of 6. So now that management component and that compliance and the accountability piece is ever so critical in order for us to deliver the work for the entire year. So again, I want to echo what Monica shared, and can't wait to hear what else is in store for this role.
We're also building relationships and partnerships with community stakeholders, and managing existing relationships and partnerships.
I think I see some comments in the chat in terms of what executive directors do on a daily basis. Not much. Don't do much.
Oh, the question should be what aren't you doing?
Oh, right.
Are
Thank you, Rebecca.
executive directors not doing in their roles, right? We've got, let me see where it started. So meetings, grant writing, decision-making, encouragement, troubleshooting. Yes, 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 yes. Checking in with staff, facilitating meetings, being the best example for how to carry out policies. I think that's where the leadership comes in, right? It's sort of showing by what you do in your leadership role. Everything, yes. Continue to build relationships, work each day to create and manage the conditions in the organization to reach its mission. Check in with lead staff managers, praying at times, LOL, right? You know, probably dancing it out a little bit, maybe some scream therapy if you need it. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Yeah.
So again, as Rebecca mentioned, you know, what is it that executive directors aren't doing? It's probably, you know, the question. I would like for you to reference the table of contents of the Principles and Practices Guide. You're doing all that, and you're doing it spontaneously, and some of it is planned, and there's a whole lot that's not planned. And that's the part of the executive director position, I think, that we forget to tell those individuals that we're recruiting, is that, and in particular, if you've not been an executive director before, that it is like popcorn, right? You know, you walk in and it's just like you're a bag of microwave popcorn. Stuff just starts popping. A few kernels don't ever pop. And then, you know, you might end up with a full bag, right, for that day. So, and we all know with microwave popcorn, sometimes we get a bag that just doesn't work at all. You put it in there and hit the buttons and nothing happens. So any given day, you know, we are doing, and you are doing all types of work, and you're expected to be able to respond and pivot to every one of your stakeholders with real answers and solutions. And so that's important to remember about this particular position. So when you're writing your job description for other positions, it's important to kind of keep in mind, you know, what is this person doing or will be doing on a daily basis to kind of help you craft that. And you can use those 12 principles as your outline, you know, to kind of guide, you know, okay, well, what are they responsible for in these areas? And then it aligns with your position. If you are the executive director, it helps to be able to do that. Again, we do have some comments in the chat there. Our next question, number 4, what skills are necessary? What did you indicate as skills?
I think management skills are important, like time management as well, because you're managing a whole team. And I think going to that point of you're doing a lot of things, that time management is definitely super important. And then communication was something else high on my list.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think experience is a good one also. And I believe that education is important because education gives you an ethical premise to operate. And it offers a level of integrity that you bring to the position.
Where are my BSWs and MSWs? Where are my social workers? Because I know that's a significant element. I knew that, Monica. When you said ethical premise, I just knew there had to be a social worker. Anybody else? Number 4, that question.
I think you got to have a good people person, good skills to really develop relationships and flexibility.
Okay. Moving on to number 5. Well, let me tell you kind of what I have noted as far as number 4: skills, education, knowledge, experience. Skills, education, knowledge, experience. Skills, education, knowledge, and experience. That's how I would frame that particular part of what we're talking about in terms of the executive director. Okay, now number 5, if you could put in the chat, either if you are the executive director or you can answer this question for your executive director of the nonprofit you're representing today, how many hours per day per week are required of an executive director? Let's just say per week. Let's focus on that. Put it in the chat for me. How many hours? How many hours per week is required to complete all of the work in these 12 principles? 55 plus, a lot, at least 40. 40 is never done. 55, oh my goodness. 50, quite a bit. It is not a 40-hour-a-week role. So I think that's important to point out, especially when you are recruiting for a new executive director or president and CEO. You can get there. That's not to say that it can't be, but you got to work at it to kind of get things set up in a way so that you can work a reasonable amount of time. If you're in the 60-hour-a-week and above, I would encourage us to start scaling back. I think Monica put in the chat self-care. I think you just have to begin to kind of create an atmosphere where you can come into every week by giving a reasonable, right, amount of time, and that's a traditional 40-hour week, so that we don't lose you, so you don't get burnout, so you don't get worn out. So you have to engage in that self-care. Who supervises the person? Number 6. Who supervises the person in this role? Oh boy, I hear crickets.
We're adding to the chat here.
Oh, I see.
The board.
The board, yes.
President of the board.
Yes, yes. So some element of the board, either the executive committee, If you're fortunate enough to have a human resource or personnel committee, that's oftentimes where that starts. If there is not a formal, if you're on this call or in this class and there's not a formal process for you as an executive director or president and CEO, I would encourage you to help to create a process, because you need that to take care of yourself. And so that so the expectations are clear. And I know that as nonprofit organizations, oftentimes we are guilty of not doing evaluations with our executive directors and president and CEOs on a regular basis. And when that happens and there is an issue, then it turns sour really fast because there was not a mechanism in place. And you might say to yourself, well, it's not my responsibility to put, a process in place. It kind of is if it doesn't exist, because you want to take care of yourself. And I would encourage you to really to do that. You need to do that. That needs to be clear. You need to have a performance evaluation. You need to engage in feedback about how you're doing. That's important. That's very important. I've observed quite a few individuals get hurt, literally, both on the executive director side and also on the board side, because there was no formal process in place. And when an issue presented itself, it just went sour. And that I've seen that over and over and over again in nonprofit organizations. So I encourage you, if you're on a board and you're participating today, encourage your board to create that process. If you're in the class and you are in this position, I encourage you to work with the board to create the process. That's very important. Very, very important. Okay, so we've got our worksheet completed. You can do this with any job. You can do this with any job in your organization. Complete the information, and then the next page that you have is the job description format, like the template to actually put the description together. So you just take the information from the worksheet and plug it into the description there, and voila, you've got a job description. Okay, so you can add to it, you can take away. You may have a board member whose background is human resources. You can get them to take a look at it, all of that great stuff. And so that is the job description and how to do that and putting that together. I'm going to move on to compensation. So in your packet, you have a handout titled Determinants of Compensation. We've provided the link here for you as well. And so in looking at this, what we want to do is just really highlight what we mean when we talk about these different ways of thinking about compensation. The North Carolina Center for Nonprofits has a salary survey that is available. We have provided that link as well. And so you can, that goes under the living wage item that's on our agenda. And then also we have a link for hiring practices. But I did want to focus on the determinants of compensation. I know sometimes, it's difficult working in some of our nonprofit organizations to get salaries up to a competitive level. And so, one of the things I say is just do your research and try to create job opportunities that are attractive for individuals to come and work for your organization, especially those nonprofits that are kind of small. You're not as large and you may not have as many resources as some of the others. And so these determinants are laid out here to kind of just help you with determining what your compensation or pay philosophy is going to be. So maybe we can't offer what we'd like to offer in an hourly wage, but maybe we can accompany that with some other things that are attractive and that we can use to recruit and bring individuals on board. So that is there for you to consider and to think about. Think about, ways that you can partner with other nonprofits. Maybe they have something like, say, a YWCA or a YMCA you know, they might have something that they could offer to some of your staff, right? That might be considered a perk or be considered a benefit. So you might think about it, you know, think about it like that. So this is here for you to kind of reference and to use. So in terms of just kind of going to our next piece of information, well, let me pause there in terms of questions. So again, we're talking compensation, hiring practices, and the living wage.
Dr. Palmer, I have a quick question. This is
Mhm.
Kelly. This might not be exactly the right place to ask it, but you made the point about potentially partnering with other nonprofits on services or efforts. I was wondering if you've seen or if it's appropriate to potentially look at partnering with other nonprofits that are similar to you in your size and scale around HR,
Yes.
HR services if you're not able to sustain a full-time HR person.
Yes, that is very appropriate. You know, that if you can work along with, say, a network of nonprofits who need, say, IT, that's a big one, information technology, and being able to afford a skilled IT professional. That's one of those areas as well. And yes, you can work together. Maybe you can't afford, say, a full-time IT person, but if 5 nonprofits bring that IT person on board, yeah, that's very appropriate. And I've seen that done.
Okay, thank you.
Financial and also bookkeeping. I've seen that happen with bookkeeping as well. I'm not so sure I would do it with fundraising. I don't think I would do it there, but there's some tasks and some responsibilities and positions that you might be able to share.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Do executive directors typically get raises every year, or is it every couple of years, or how does that work? And then how do you determine, I mean, is there a general scale of, is it just, you know, whatever inflation is, or how do you determine that?
Well, they should. Let me start off by saying that, Ashley. They should get raises, and they should be evaluated each and every year. It's going to vary from nonprofit to nonprofit. I do know in the human resources sphere, and there may be someone on this call that can respond to this as well. It may be that you have someone who have those skills, but that can help you keep up with what the market is for an executive director in your area, because that does vary. And there is a salary survey that the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits makes available, that you can actually see, you know, what those expectations are, at least in theory and based on research. So yes, executive directors should be considered for raises on a regular basis, whether that's every year or something different. That's something you would have to establish. But to answer your questions, yes, yes, and yes. Rebecca, is there any particular items with the North Carolina centers in our library or in our toolbox that might be a response to Ashley's question? I know the salary survey. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I put a chat for the link to the salary and benefits report on our website.
Okay.
Members do save. There's a discount code for members to download that. But it does compare salaries and benefits for the state of North Carolina. We also have a, I don't know if any of you have multiple. There is the national report too, if you're wanting to compare nationally. But in terms of Ashton's question, was it about having a contract bookkeeper? And looks like Catapult, being the HR consulting agency, do many of you have an outside agency that you work with for consulting with around HR issues? And not in-house? No. Not seeing much response from that. People all just looking at me like, no.
That's okay.
Hi, this is Cheryl Ann.
We can hear you.
Great.
Cheryl
I
Ann.
have a question about, we have employees from Maine to Florida, and the cost of living varies greatly from Maine to Florida. And I find our salary range clunked together despite the cost of living in these areas and experience. Anyone have any ideas about how to separate some of that for salary, setting salaries for all similar positions? I'm not talking about differing positions. I'm talking about, we have coordinators from Maine to Florida. Thanks.
The first thought that comes to mind for me is, Rebecca, that there are, 37, 38 associations like the NC Center across the country. And each of those associations do different kinds of reporting and research. That would be a good place to start, I think, because they're going to be in the loop and kind of have the pulse of what's happening with nonprofits. That would be the first thing I would probably do is, if you know what states, you're hiring in, then I might look to those associations to see if that might be helpful. That's what comes to mind for me.
Dr. Palmer, I have a question on, so like the DEI stuff for me has to bleed into everything, right? So it really shows up here. And one of the things that it's like a personal hill that I'm going to die on is people posting their salary ranges, their hiring ranges when they're posting jobs. Because it's such a waste of everyone's time if you have to get to a second or third interview you really waste the organization's time and resources, but also the candidates. And then the question of, please submit your salary requirements or your history. That's a major race and gender equity issue. And so I want to bring those up here because I don't see them explicitly named anywhere else. And I think they're really important when we're talking about this stuff, because as nonprofits, we can do better in that area. And I don't see it as much as I'd love to. And it's happening in all industries. That's not a finger wag at nonprofits, but certainly when we talk about how budgets are tight and we might not be able to offer the most glamorous package in terms of dollars, I think we can also be explicit about these other things that also really take equity in to heart when we're doing hiring practices. I have my sister had an interview recently from the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and had a 9 a.m. the interview, and they said, we'll call you in this 7-hour window. And it cracked me up because I thought that's an equity issue. You've got a woman that works full time that now has to block her entire day, and they never even called. So like we can all do better. And I think we have to really talk about those things.
Sarah, thank you for using the microphone for that. That's what I'm going to say. Thank you for using the microphone for that. Thank you. Rebecca, I think Jean had a couple of comments in the chat. If you want to lift those up.
Sure. The center is a member. And so we can share the question of, hiring and salary practices can be shared from there with them.
And can you say that again, because you broke up just a little bit?
Sorry.
You said the center is a member, and what are they a member of?
So the center is a member of the National Council of Nonprofits. And so we can go to them to interact with other and in other states, neighboring states, to sort of get a pulse on what other nonprofits are doing, what other associations are doing, and get pretty good feedback for those. Yeah.
And Sarah, I see you're getting much appreciation for your for what you shared. I think that's a challenge. I think we're now all charged, right, to do that, to do what she's encouraging us to do. Okay, retention. Let's move into retention. In terms of what we have highlighted, if we could go to the PowerPoint slide on retention. So our focus is background checks, conflict of interest, employee benefits, employee relations programs, which is what we've been talking about, employee retention in general in terms of the total person and trying to respond to the total person in our work settings. Employee handbooks, ensuring that we have at least a document that our employees can reference. Even if we don't have everything covered in it, at least we can begin to build it. And then a grievance process. So if there's an issue, where do employees go to express any kind of grievance? And then succession planning, boy, that's a big one. Succession policies and planning when we know that individuals are going to leave us and when they abruptly leave us, what is our plan to fill those roles? So those are the retention, the areas of focus as it relates to retention. Background checks, that is really a purchasing of a mechanism that you can actually do the background checks. Depending upon the kind of programs you offer, kind of dictates what level of background checks do you do. Is it statewide? Is it national? That's important to keep in mind. Conflict of interest and confidentiality. You can add confidentiality. Some of our programs, we're interacting with providing services that are intimate to the people that are participating in our programs. And so it's important for us to maintain confidentiality in terms of how we share information. And even though we're supposed to help the folks that we're working with, there is a way to approach that. So having a conflict of interest and a confidentiality policy is important. Employee benefits, there's a handout in your packet that just kind of gives you some affordable benefits, some of which we just talked about earlier. Work-life balance, that's challenging depending upon what kind of service you provide. Some of your organizations are providing 24/7 services and programs. And so that can be difficult. And so we have to be intentional about that. We've already talked about self-care. Another employee benefit that maybe we haven't thought a lot about is have fun. That can be laughter, conversation, all of that's healthy to lead and to model within our organizations. Flexible work schedules, giving individuals the freedom, to have a flexible schedule. The way I think about it is that, I don't micromanage until you give me a reason to. When you give me a reason to micromanage, oh, I can do it. But, the idea is, let's have results, and, when we're talking about interacting with our employees, really being clear about what you prefer, right? In terms of their work behavior. What is it that you prefer as the individual that's leading and managing, let's just say, the organization or a program, because you may be on this call and you're heading up a program, so being clear about what those expectations are, but helping individuals recognize that you do have to hold them accountable at the same time. So I'm sure, like I said, we can all micromanage if you give us a reason to. And I think that needs to be very clear, because it's not what you're doing when I'm watching, it's what you're doing when I'm not watching. That's the game changer, So these are some affordable benefits that we've just kind of outlined here for you to have to review. And then we have what we call an employee relations program. So to do this work, we're going to go into breakouts. To do this work, we're going to go into breakouts. And what we want you to do is to generate some examples on how you can build the capacity of your human resources in these areas. And so we've got experience, expertise, education. We've got mission, vision, partner, collaborate. And we've got in your handout packet, self-directed and self-motivated. So the question is, with your human resources, how can you help them? How can we build capacity of your human resources as it relates to these positions? And you've got your handout to show. Rebecca, can you go to that handout for me? I want to make sure I'm at the right place here. This is the total person.
I think Leslie, if you're still
Oh, Leslie, okay.
with us, if you can share that. If not, I can.
Okay.
Which handout was it again?
It is the employee relations program. So it is, I just want to see what it is in. Okay. So here is what you're working with in your breakout. And so what we're wanting you to do is we're wanting you to generate some examples on how you can build the capacity of the human resources in your nonprofit organization related to these elements of who we are. So we have a mission and we have a vision. So what do we need to do to build the capacity of our human resources to work alongside of us to maintain the mission and achieve the vision? What do we need to do to build the capacity of our human resources to partner or collaborate? What do we need to do to build the capacity of our human resources to be the folks that are our stakeholders to be self-directed and self-motivated? How do we do that? And then how do we enhance the capacity of our stakeholders or human resources in terms of experience, expertise, and education? So how do we do this? And you can pick one. You don't have to focus on all of these when you go into your breakouts. Now, what you want to kind of write alongside of this is we're talking about paid staff, volunteers, board of directors, program participants, and maybe even donors. So I'm going to say this list again: paid staff, volunteers, board of directors, program participants, and donors. So our human resources, these are our human resources. So how can we build the capacity of our human resources? Pick one, and then pick one element of the employee relations program that you see here and discuss it in your breakouts. Rebecca, I'm going to pass it, or Leslie, I'm going to pass it on to you. I know you're both there. So.
Yeah, sure thing. We'll go ahead and start the breakout rooms. How much time are we given?
Let's do, I'm looking at the clock here. Let's do about 10 minutes. Well, let's do 7. Let's do 7 minutes. Yep.
All right.
Let's do
Go ahead
7.
and open up our rooms. We'll see you back here in 7 minutes.
Enjoy. I think we're all back, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's hear from what you came up with. Hear a little bit about what you came up with in terms of how you might build the capacity of these different human resource roles in your agency. And you can unmute and share, or you can use the chat. And you have a worksheet in your packet too. It's the next handout behind the Employee Relations Program handout, where you can kind of fill in some of what you hear. If you want to capture that, that's a good way to complete that worksheet and to take notes all at the same time.
Okay, this is Julie, and I was in group 3, and we weren't totally clear, but we did our best. And so what we talked about kind of the balance between on the education piece of like hiring people with the right type of education, and then also offering continued education opportunities to the people that you have, because we also talked about self-directed and self-motivated, and it's almost, you know, in the hiring practices of identifying, is the type of person what you want, and then can you provide the education, versus do you need a certain type of education and then can continue that. So we talked about that, and just fostering a culture sort of that you want to keep or
and
to grow,
and to make sure you're delivering on a good match, you know, because that gets into the retention element of what we're talking about. The employee relations strategies are supposed to, right, help us with retention, you know, so that we're not having to continue to go through that process of spending resources on replacing, you know, if we lose someone. You were going to say something else, Julie. I'm sorry.
No, probably nothing else that so anybody else in the group wants to add into that, but that's all I have.
And I see retention of quality staff starts with recruitment of quality staff. I agree. I agree. Anybody else want to comment on your work in your group? Don't fill a vacancy just to fill it. Yeah. These are all very important. And all that we're talking about is a decision, right? You're just making a decision to do these things so that we don't lose on the side of retention. You know, we want to make sure we can kind of keep folks in their roles. So if you look at your the image of the person that has these elements of what we've highlighted as elements of employee relations, this is the message here. And someone just put it in a chat and I just read it. You know, it is having using employee relations tools and strategies to help us retain the people that we have. And we can't please everybody, right? Nor are we trying to. But we definitely want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to minimize the amount of time we spend and having to replace or having to fill positions just because we didn't take the time to incorporate healthy employee relations strategies while they were either recruited and at the same time while they were hired. So, or after they were hired. So that's important. And thank you for everyone who have put those comments in the chat. So you've got that worksheet to kind of help you to kind of think through not just your paid staff, but your volunteers, your board of directors, participants in the programs that you have. You know, because we don't have people participating in programs, what do we have to do, right? I mean, there's not a lot left for us to do if folks are not showing up for our programs. And we have, and it's important to use strategies to retain, right, those participants as well. And then of course, donors, for those of you who interact with donors, it's the same principles are at work here. So that's important to keep in mind. So we have worked through employee benefits, employee relations programs, retention, a tool that is helpful with recruitment and retention, and also helps us not make promises we can't keep when it comes to hiring our employees, is our handbook. And if we don't have one, we should start developing one, because that's important. Rebecca is going to show us the table of contents of the Essential Nonprofit Employee Handbook from that link that's in your handout packet. And so she's going to just show that so we can kind of see what goes into a handbook. And again, you know, we know that enhancing our capacity does not happen overnight. We know that. And so we have to decide, you know, how we want to approach enhancing our capacity. And so this is a resource that we found that gives us a template to that. And it gives us the outline or an outline. Go back to, yeah, there you go. Go to the bottom of that page, of that first page. That's where it starts. So basically it's given us these general, of these sections of what to consider to go into your handbook. And so first you see general employment policies that would be for your nonprofit. So you see those items that are listed there. And I'm going over the table of contents. And then keep going. I'm going to say employee handbook as it is indicated with this resource. I think there was a question. And here's some of the policies that may also be in your handbook. Then how to interpret employment status with those individuals that you have hired, recruiting and hiring and what that process is. And then of course, we have compensation and salary administration. That's another element of this. Come back down for me for section 5. General workplace policies. And this is going to be different depending upon your organization. This is just a guide to kind of help you. And then employee benefit programs, if individuals want to take leave, holidays, etc. And you can, yep. Organizational property and technology, that's a big one, you know, in terms of using social media. There's a social media policy that a lot of your organizations have. Employee performance and workplace conduct, how do we address that? And then this point here, I love it that they put, I just said this, every organization is different. So it's important to tailor your handbook content to your needs and concerns. That's important. It's not a one size fits all. And then section 10, separation from employment, employee acknowledgement form in terms of that. And then there is a notation of the author of the source. So we just wanted to give you this so that it can, if you have one, you might want to go back and do a review. And if you want to start and create a handbook, then you've got some guidelines here. Rebecca, I think I saw some questions in the chat. I don't want to miss those as we were kind of scrolling through.
I think you addressed it. Jane had asked, is the personnel policy and employee handbook one and the same?
It is twofold. I mean, because you're highlighting policy and the handbook is the tangible evidence of that. And again, it's going to vary depending upon your nonprofit. The other piece of information that you have, two things I want to point out, is having a grievance process. That was in that handbook template as well. If your employees, even your volunteers, if they have an issue, where do they go? They need to know how to handle that so that it doesn't create some other problems because they don't know where they can share their voice. then they're doing that inappropriately and in inappropriate spaces. So you want to make sure that they have that. And then the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits has a resource on succession planning. And so I don't know, Rebecca, do you just want to show that real quick? Do you want to go to that link, or do you?
I've got a question. So we're a small nonprofit and I'm a contract executive director with no other staff. And we don't have, you know, an employee manual or anything like that. We have bylaws. So at what point do you need to get some of these policies and procedures in place, like conflict of interest and things like that? And what's the best mechanism, given there's no, you know, we've got our board of directors and then me, but that's it.
Well, I do think it may not be as extensive as you might see in terms of what we've laid out, but you as a contracted individual need some protection. I'm just going to say. So, you know, if you had an issue, where would you go? You know, yes, it's just one of you, but you matter. So, you know, how would you kind of manage yourself, or how would you navigate, you know, addressing some of these issues? Maybe it's in your contract because you're contracted. So maybe you don't have a 50-page handbook, but for those things that matter to you, you might have a statement or some kind of disclaimer in your contract that speaks to some of what we see here. And again, that's going to be unique to, you know, what your expectations are of them and what their expectations are of you. So just because there's one doesn't mean that issues won't surface, because it still can. You may not have as comprehensive of a document, let's just say, but you definitely need to know if there was an issue or not, or if there's some action you wanted to take. It doesn't have to be negative. If there was some action you want to take, how would you do that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, Rebecca, I'm going to let you highlight what we have as a resource here.
Sure. This is from Compass Point, and it goes through the various template topics that you can have in your emergency succession plan, from rationale, priority functions, succession plan, short-term absence. Here it goes through appointment process, standing appointees, cross-training plan. This is really important and something that has to be updated. Authority, oversight and support, and also communications plan. And then it's the option for the long-term temporary absence as well. It goes through that. And then the permanent absence procedures as well. And then it's signed here by all those involved, and you could update this based on who needs to sign off on this, but this is just a template, an example of what you could create for a succession plan. And man, we've had a lot of experience with emergency planning, right? For things that you never thought could happen. Yeah. So this is one less thing you'll have to worry about should you have anyone that you don't have any surprises when it comes to succession, that you already have a plan and you have a backup plan in mind.
And the idea is to think about it at least, you know, what would you do if your executive director, let's just say abruptly, for a lot of different reasons, was not there tomorrow? Mm-hmm. What would happen? How would things proceed? I know that's a scary thought, but it can definitely happen. So yep. So make sure multiple people know about it and what needs to happen. we're going to push through our last part of human resources. Then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back for our graduation celebration. So in terms of reward, career development, I heard some folks talk about staff development being a responsibility of the ED, promotion, professional development, and that is different than career development when you think about providing support to your staff. Performance evaluations from the perspective of, are we evaluating behavior? Are we evaluating results? Or are we evaluating skills, expertise, and characteristics of the individuals that work with us? And then the compensation review, we talked about that already earlier with the determinants of compensation and the salary survey that is offered through the NC Center, and the salary hiring and salary information Jean referred to with the Nonprofit Council. So that's, all of that is important there. And then the status of the individuals, of your employees. That was a section in the handbook that people know what their status is. Whenever that gets out of order, meaning people don't know what their jobs are or what they're supposed to do, it really does impact morale. And so it's important to try to stay ahead of that, because when it gets off track, it's hard to get back on track. So people just knowing what their positions are, what their roles are, and what they're expected to do. With the, in terms of reward, I want to hone in on a handout that's in your packet. And these are just some attributes of a nonprofit leader and manager. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the executive director or CEO. And this is just some attributes that I've identified in terms of just my learning and working with nonprofit professionals, and not just the president and CEO. So again, it's in your packet, attributes of a nonprofit leader and manager. To be coachable, in terms of, if we're going to lead and manage nonprofits, we ourselves need to be coachable. Compassionate, the work that we do, the missions and vision of our nonprofit organizations oftentimes, requires us to have compassion around the work. To be confident, my favorite is to be a capacity builder ourselves, in terms of our stakeholders and who we're working with, to develop our competency as it relates to leading and manage nonprofits. I think it goes without saying with this group to be committed and to definitely have credibility. That's important, having credibility with our peers and the people we work with, and also in our community. That is important. So in terms of attributes of a nonprofit leader and manager, as we kind of bring this to somewhat of a close, be coachable, be compassionate, be confident, be a capacity builder, be competent, be committed, and be credible. So in terms of that, we have a couple of more links for you around this idea of evaluation and doing annual reviews with our staff. And it doesn't have to be, we don't have to make it complicated, right? To do an evaluation and review of even our volunteers, to give them feedback. We just need to build it into what we do. I think weekly supervision is important, checking in with your staff, making sure that everyone has what they need, or at least they have a space to voice what they need or what concerns them. That's important. And that it takes time, yes, but we definitely need that. So review and evaluation is not just once a year. It's ongoing, just kind of checking in with each other, and knowing what the status of our workers are, our employees are, and then helping them to understand that as well. So human resources, that concludes that topic. Rebecca, if we can go back to gallery, and kind of how I like to close out every session. I like to get a pulse of, How useful is this topic of human resources? How does that, where are you with that topic, as that is our last topic of the Institute?
For me, it was a critical component that I need to definitely grow into. It's always my worry that I'm not providing, like our policies don't align with like what the laws are and things like that. So these resources are going to be real helpful for us. I kind of feel like some of the other staff who say it's just me leading. I don't have an assistant. I'm trying to help my board with some fundraising strategies to get one. So having the HR conversation outside of this with some of the other peers on the call is going to be very helpful as well, because I'm a social worker, so it's hard to know, like, am I including every policy that's supposed to be in this handbook and that hasn't been updated since 2015? You know what I'm saying? So just those kinds of things are, it just hones in on what the reality is in this day-to-day process of nonprofit management.
I think that I definitely would like to have a conversation with my board in terms of my review. That is something that I need it, I want it, because as wonderful as I think I am, I know I've got work, I've got work to do. And I need that feedback. And so I don't think there has been anything in place for that to take place. And so I definitely want to do that. And one of the challenges I think that COVID has presented is, I've got employees who work still predominantly from home, and then I've got people who are in the office, and there can be a little bit of resentment between those coming in the office, but some jobs are easily done at home. And so just trying to navigate that and trying to have fun at the same time. And it has been challenging to keep that employee morale up and still maintain the work that needs to be done. One of the things that I instituted when I first came on is morning stand-up meetings. We meet every morning at 9:30 for about 15 minutes. And when COVID hit, we still do it. We just do it virtually. And it really means so much to everyone. And I have a person on staff who does the pretty little picture and the fun. And so, but lots of challenges that COVID threw in that we didn't have before.
I like that idea of the morning stand-up for accountability for those individuals that are virtual. That's, and still working from home. That's, especially with everybody probably doing that together, and then having those separate times when you're meeting with folks. That's. Anybody else as far as employee relations, human resources and employee relations and retention and reward and all that? Okay. All right. Well, we are going to take a break and then we're going to come back. We're going to do a mini reflection, and then we're going to go right into graduation. So it is 11:33. And so let's do a 5-minute. Is that good? 11:38. Let's come back, and maybe, Rebecca, we might finish a few minutes early today. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see, maybe.
Okay, maybe, maybe. All right, 11:38. We'll be back.
Okay, thanks. And we're good to go.
Awesome, thank you. And Rebecca, can we go to that participant reflection slide in the PowerPoint? Sure. This is where we started, right? We were looking at the North Carolina map, and we introduced ourselves and all of that. And so what we want to hear from you is, now the Institute is complete. We have finished it. And we want to know, how will you be using this information to advance either your career or professional development, or in the current position that you're in? So how will this information or Institute experience be useful? And so you can unmute yourself if you'd like, and tell us what county you're from.
I'm happy to go. This is Kelly again. I'm in Wake County. There's so much that I think I can use, but I guess for me, being brand new to the nonprofit space, coming from a corporate background, this has really helped me not only see similarities to the corporate space, which I think is exciting and of how we run our organizations, but also taking in a lot of different things into consideration, particularly around fund development and donor relations and those pieces that my organization really needs to work on. But first, as I've already said to Dr. Palmer, we've got to work on our strategic plan and really making sure we understand who we are, what is our value, what do we contribute, so that we have a compelling case for diversifying our funding long term. So I think those are the things that I've really taken as I move forward in this new role, and just have really appreciated everything and getting to know everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Monica in Franklin County, and for me, it has really, my greatest takeaway has been the board development piece. I have already started using the strategies, recruiting people. I helped my board chair do some interviews. I didn't participate in the interviews, but just connected her to folks that I thought would be great on our board, and just looking at people that can provide a resource to the organization as, you know, we try to build upon from where we are now to where we want to go. That has been the greatest work. And I mean, I've already seen the success around my participation in this, as I continue to plunge forward with, you know, goals and objectives, and then going into a strategic plan as well. So I'm very grateful, and I learned a whole lot.
This is Terry. I'll go next. Forgive my my screen, but it just won't work for me. This has been extremely valuable. Not only am I a new ED, I have a new organization and an all new board. And I have so much information now that I can use to guide everyone in our journey. And if people ask me questions about why, I have substance to back it up, and best practices to back it up. So it makes me feel a whole lot more confident in the work I'm doing and the information I share in the direction that I encourage us to go in to grow as our, we're a family foundation and we're in Mecklenburg County. I forgot to mention that. So just everything so timely for me, so critical. And I appreciate it so much. I'm really sad that it's ending. I want to do it every Tuesday morning. So thank you.
This is Sarah. I can go next. I'm in Wake County, but support an organization that's statewide. And I have just rolled off of my board chair term, and I really wish I had taken this class years ago. I've been working in a nonprofit since about 2007. So a lot of nonprofit stuff is just a part of my work history, but this has really built a lot of skill. And like, the last person just mentioned, there's like substance and kind of receipts and documentation and best practice to back the things up that we've learned here. And I've been able to share a lot of these resources already with our other board members and the incoming chair. And we'll certainly recommend them to take this class. It's just been really, really useful and engaging. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
I'll go next. I'm sorry, I've been trying to download my video, but I can't seem to get the background right. So you guys are going to be at the beach with me, okay? See, the wind is blowing.
Love it.
Let me say this, why I think it's been helpful for me. Leaving an agency after 25 years is a long time. And we have a new ED now that's, I guess he's been there about 2 to 3 years now. I feel like upon leaving, and this institute has reinforced to me that he asked a lot of questions. He asked for a lot of information for mission, vision, culture, everything that we've gone through. And I feel really good that at least most of the areas that we covered, I gave good information. I gave good guidance. I feel like I left the agency and the information I've left him with in a good state, because when you've been somewhere for 25 years, that's my heart. And, I just want to make sure that he continues to keep the same culture. And it's important to the employees that continuity is important, and making sure that stays the same. So I really, really am glad I went through this process, because again, I think it just reinforced for me that I did give good information, and in areas that I wasn't as queued up on, I've just learned more about. So thank you. It was very informative.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
I am so thrilled to have had this opportunity. I've been talking to a lot of team members about the duality of my role as YNPN board chair and the work that I do in other organizations, because I am a serial volunteer. So I've seen you all in several spaces, many of you, but to have this opportunity to stand in for YNPN and to share the mission and vision of this organization and to create, and this sounds melodramatic, but bear with me. I've told my husband that it feels like I am creating a bridge between young nonprofiteers and the seasoned individuals like yourself who are in these roles, right? Giving us visibility, giving us the opportunity to apply all of these tools and tips and resources is incredible. This is game changing for me, and it's game changing for the network of 2,000 other young nonprofiteers behind me. And the cooler thing is, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Center for Nonprofits and Dr. Palmer, y'all have laid out so many tools that we can pick up and tweak and get guidance from you all as partners and collaboration to be able to build this out. So I am so excited for what's coming for the other individuals behind me, and this is immediately going to work. So thank you all so much for this opportunity to share space with you.
Okay. Well, Rebecca, I'm going to transition us into our graduation. So everybody get ready, drum roll for that. Thank you all for your feedback. Don't forget to do the evaluation when it comes your way. I'm going to mute myself and get ready to celebrate with you.
Just to make it official, we have Pomp and Circumstance playing as we transition to graduation. Thank you all for being here today. The graduation of the 2021 spring class of the Nonprofit Management Institute. All 46 of you here today. And with that, I'll go ahead and pause our music. And we will move on to the agenda. I will turn it over now to Jean to go ahead and give a quick welcome and introduce our commencement speaker, Ivan Canada.
Very good. Thank you, Rebecca. And I will just tell you that the comments that you have all made about the The learning that you have experienced over the last 5 weeks has really been music to my ears. When we thought about preparing an institute for effective nonprofit management, certainly under the guidance and tutelage of Dr. Pamela Palmer, we were really hoping that we would offer a program that would be very practical, very helpful, not esoteric, and sort of out in the sky, but really something that you could take back to your office and use right away. And based on the comments that I heard this morning, thank you. I feel like we have been very, very successful. So again, I want to thank our sponsors, the Triangle Community Foundation, Guilford Nonprofit Consortium for sharing this program with us, Dr. Palmer for all of your guidance and leadership, and certainly to Rebecca Beck on our staff who has led the way for us. Just really appreciate all the work that you have done, and it shows. So without further ado, I would also like to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon's program. He has already sent me an email to say, now don't read everything on my bio because people don't really want to hear all that stuff. So I'm going to read some of the information from his bio. Ivan Canada is currently serving as the executive director of the National Conference for Community and Justice of the Piedmont Triangle, known as NCCJ. I always forget what those letters stand for. And before his recent appointment, he served in a role that was created just for him, the Senior Director of Development, Communications, and Strategic Partnerships. NCCJ is a human relations organization that promotes understanding and respect among all cultures, races, and religions through advocacy, education, and dialogue. NCCJ also works to build compassionate and just communities free of bias, bigotry, and racism. Prior to joining the NCCJ staff, he worked with Guilford Green Foundation as executive director and director of special projects. Certainly at this time in our contemporary situation and some of the strife that we're dealing with, we really have somebody who's really timely for us and sensitive to the issues that we're dealing with. Ivan has been a leader in the Triad community and has been awarded the Triad Business Journal's 40 Leaders Under 40 Award, the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce Change Agent Award, and most recently recognized by the Latino Community Coalition of Guilford County with a Corazon Latino Award, which recognizes non-Latino community members, businesses, and nonprofit organizations that have consistently served as an ally to the Latinx community. Most important for me, Ivan has served as the chair of the board for the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, and through his leadership has helped to guide on so many different issues, but particularly to guide our equity, diversity, and inclusion work. We are pleased that he has agreed to provide this graduation keynote yet again. He was our keynote speaker for our first graduating class, and we know you will be pleased as well. Not much pressure here, Ivan, but we know that you'll be giving us a good message. So let me turn then to Ivan, and I hope I haven't said too many things, too many nice things about you. I could go on, right?
Yes, you could, and no one wants to hear all of that. I should have just given you the link to our organizational website, and you could have just sent it to people. That's what I'll do next time.
Well, that's all right. Thank you. I think it's important for people to understand the depth and breadth of your experience and what you bring to the nonprofit sector. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Jean, for that warm and long introduction. I appreciate it. It is really good to be with you all, with my people. As Jean has alluded already, I've been in nonprofits for a very long time, and I consider all of you all and everyone that works in nonprofits my people. You all get it. You get all the things that I get, the frustrations and everything. So it's really nice to be with you all today. So I'm going to take a few minutes of your time and just talk with you. Just know that I have a very sort of flatlined approach to leadership. And so that will probably resonate even in the words that I share today, that I do not intend to have all the answers. So first of all, congratulations, you all did it. You not only successfully completed the Center's Nonprofit Management Institute, but you also prioritized your own professional development and growth while also working in your organization, perhaps while homeschooling your children or taking care of others in your family in the midst of a global pandemic. Completing this program during this time is a really big deal. Trust me, I know firsthand, as last year I was working to complete the CAP program, which is a Charter Advisor in Philanthropy certificate that I did with a small cohort of folks here in the Greensboro community through our local community foundation. There were weeks that I was on top of my assignments and readings, and then there were times that I was weeks behind in my assignments. Like you, I stuck to prioritizing making it happen because I was committed to the sector and the role that I play in making my community better, as well as my own growth and development. You may think that we are over-congratulating you all on completing this institute or making this a really big deal for you, but I'm here to say we aren't. We aren't, because our sector needs each of you striving for success, learning new skills, networking across focus areas, and supporting each other, especially if we're going to provide mentors to students, provide meals to those in our communities that are in need of one, ensure that the arts are reflective and accessible for all in our communities, protect and preserve our environment for future generations, and all the other worthwhile, important, and needed work that happens daily in your organizations. Personally, I think we've got to do a better job and a more equitable job of supporting, providing, and encouraging professional development within our sector. I've been a part of this sector for almost 20 years in some capacity, whether it was as a volunteer board member or as an executive. And I know that we as a sector don't prioritize investing in ourselves and in our organizations. Now, I know there are a lot of reasons for that. We're busy doing the work. Our budgets won't allow for professional development, mostly due to lack of available funds or funders not providing those dollars without cutting our programmatic funds. Or maybe the leadership in your organization doesn't see the value in professional development. I'm proud that we have the center helping to fill that gap of providing accessible and relevant training to strengthen nonprofits, which in essence strengthens our communities across the state. And we're in good hands with the center team, constantly thinking about how we can best support the needs of nonprofits and equip them with the skills needed to be successful. So I know that commencement speakers are usually charged with providing advice or some kind of inspirational message to graduates. And I'm not going to follow that plan necessarily for you all today. For starters, all of you and the work you are doing is inspiring to me and others. And I hope that just participating in this program and connecting with others doing great work across the state has been inspiring and uplifting for you. And I don't like personally giving a lot of advice, because in our culture that usually feeds into this idea that one person or position can provide answers or solutions that will work for every person and or situation that's faced. We here at NCCJ have an operating assumption that's used sometimes in our work that sums my feelings up on this. No one knows everything, but together we know a lot. So rather than providing advice or inspiration to you, I want to just remind you of a few things that I found important to me in my own professional journey. I intentionally say remind because I know we probably all know these things on surface level at least, but we just need to be reminded about them from time to time and know it's okay to embrace them. So number one, constantly reconnect with your why in this work. Nonprofit work is tough. Fundraising is not fun. We are all under-resourced, yet more and more is being asked of us. However, we are all here because we believe in making a difference and impacting people's lives. I know for me, when I've been in one too many meetings and I've had too much administrative junk on my plate to deal with, I've got to connect with our mission in a hands-on kind of way, which usually involves going to a program or being around young people that are working to make their schools and their communities more inclusive. After spending that time with the actual work, whatever has pushed me over the edge, that board member, that budget meeting or whatever, has faded in my memory, and I'm ready to pick myself back up and go back at it again. Number 2, continue to seek out opportunities to grow your skill sets and grow as a leader. This may be enrolling in a 60-minute webinar and actually being present and participating in the webinar, as opposed to signing up for it just to receive the slide deck and presentation and you never going back to watch it. Maybe I'm just speaking about myself, but I know that for many of us, this is what we have been doing. It could also look like signing up for newsletters from organizations like BoardSource or Equity in the Center, or one of my favorite ones, Nonprofit AF, and reading articles from time to time and begin to apply what you've learned into your own work. Lastly, also help your organization become an organization of continuous learning that prioritizes professional development and capacity building within the team. Number 3, lead from the seat that you're in. I prescribe to the following leadership theory, that social change comes from the leadership of many. For example, if we look at the example that I grew up with a lot being born in Greensboro, the sit-in movement and the Greensboro Four. Everyone knows Joseph, Franklin, Ezell, and David. But there were many other important people that played a role in making and supporting that change to happen. For instance, Jack Moebs. He was the photographer with the morning paper, the Greensboro Daily News, and the evening paper, the Greensboro Record. He took the only photo of the Greensboro Four participants as they left the lunch counter that first day, that very iconic photo that many of us know. Another example, Willa B. Player. She was the president of Bennett College at the time of the sit-ins. Player's overwhelmingly positive response was unique among local college presidents, as she openly supported the sit-in involvement from her students. And other names like Warmoth T. Gibbs Sr. and Ralph Johns. We need all kinds of people to step up and play different roles in order to achieve social change. You can take any part of the civil rights movement or any other social movement for that matter and tell a similar story. And you can add many more names to this story. And doing that does not diminish the courage of Joseph, Franklin, Ezell, and David to acknowledge that their leadership was part of a larger leadership narrative. Lastly, we need to see leadership as an action that many can take, not just a position that only a few can hold. Leadership is a muscle and everyone has it, and it only gets stronger with exercise and practice. We need to build the collective leadership muscles of our organizations and communities if we want to create sustainable change. My last piece of reminding advice for you. Spend some time figuring out what replenishes your cup and how you can take care of yourself. No, seriously, write this list down in a journal or in your phone or on the Notepad app. Be sure to list things that don't take much time to do or don't cost any money to do. As we know, both of these resources can be limiting for us at various times. In recent months, something that's been new for me has been the power of a walk. I try and take some of my phone calls on my cell phone so that I can walk and talk. And then once a week, my partner and I do at least one long walk together. So in the sense of sharing this opportunity with all of you all, I'd actually like to invite you to participate in your commencement speech with me today. I'm inviting you all to type in the chat, maybe a reminder of your own that you want to share with everyone else in this class, a saying, a quote, something to share with everyone that will keep them focused, keep them inspired, something that they may need to look back on in their own journey as nonprofit leaders to keep them focused on the larger goal. And perhaps we can get the center to compile this list and share it with everyone as part of the wrap-up documents of this session. I know I always say this, I'm being a bad board member by putting more work on the staff, but I think that this will be something that they would support me in doing. So if you all will indulge me and write some of your own reminders, whether they be quotes, things you want people to be reminded, as they do this work in the chat, and I will read some of them before we wrap up. What you are doing matters. Do what you can with what you have where you are. As a leader, I am gifted with a love for humanity that propels me to serve my community. Every day I show up full of myself, ready to change this part of the world. Love that. Be the best you. Keep pushing. You are doing great things in the world. And as you do, remember to do what's right because it's right, and do it in the right spirit. If you want something bad enough, you will make a way. If not, you will make excuses. No excuses. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Those following you will notice what you do, perhaps more than what you say or tell them to do. Don't tell me the sky is the limit when there are footprints on the moon. Of that. Let your head be where your feet are. Keeping people at the centerpiece of the work we do keeps me inspired while working on tough issues that lack support from our elected representatives. Hear, hear. Celebrate what you want to see more of. Ditto to that. These are really excellent, you all. Start each day with hope, gratitude, and joy. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. You are as unstoppable and powerful as the ocean. You have been given the gift of being on earth for a reason. Hold the vision, trust the process. Yes. Each and every day when I wake, I remember to expect the unexpected. Be flexible and enjoy how you are making an impact on the world. Thank you all for indulging me and sharing with the rest of the group. Continue to type your thoughts and reflections in the chat so that they can be included in the final document. I know this past year has been a really tough one for all of us, and I want you all to know how much we at the center value you, your hard work, your compassion, your resiliency, your commitment to making your communities better and stronger. We also need each of you to continue to take care of yourself and others, because we're going to need each of you and your organizations more than before as we begin to rebuild our communities after COVID-19. I look forward to seeing all of you all, hopefully in person, in center events in the future. Thank you all for inviting me to join and be with you today.
Thank you, Ivan. Again, inspired.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. As always, just the message we need the most right now. Thank you for being with us and sharing all that. We will compile everything that was shared in the chat into one pager. Hopefully it all fit in one page that we can share with you, that you can print out and you can put in front of you near your desk where you're working as a reminder of this session and the work that we've done together, and the importance of replenishing yourself and working all towards a common goal. We want to continue on with having Dr. Palmer confer the certificates. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see if I can do this. All right, here we go. All right. So Dr. Palmer, would you like to just read the names out for us?
Sure, and I think I'm gonna switch up just a little bit. Thank you, Ivan, for helping me with facilitating this on my feet here with this little part. So in our planning for today, I just echo all that Jean has said, and also Ivan. We so appreciate each and every one of you as you are working diligently in the nonprofit sector in our great state of North Carolina. Thank you. We are just so much, we're just so you know, it's just makes me speechless really when I look at the screen and I see all of you and I hear about all the great work and all that you're doing. And every day you are moved to get up and to continue this great work. So what I would like for us to do, I'm going to confer and then I'm going to have you read your name when you see it on the screen. So you'll read your name and give the name of your organization and we'll just let it flow, okay, that way. And then when we get to the end, we will see a viewing of our graduation video and photos, okay? So dun, 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 here we go. And now the conferring of certificates. It is my honor to officially confer and graduate the Spring 2021 participants of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofit Management Institute. We are congratulating you today, and we're going to do that with our roll call. So we're going to begin with Muggsy Bogues Family Foundation. Go for it.
Hi, Terry Albanese, Muggsy Bogues Family Foundation.
Carla Ayala, Communities and Schools of Chatham County.
Bill Bogan, Downtown Director for the Downtown Belmont Development Association.
Arlene Brown from the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network of the Triangle.
Heather Burkhart, North Carolina Coalition on Aging.
Kelly Calabria, Foundation for Health, Leadership, and Innovation.
Stephanie Campbell, Life Around the Table.
Sarah Kennedy, NARAL Pro-Choice North Carolina.
Ashley Cohn, the Simula Foundation.
Jill Cox, Communities and Schools of North Carolina.
Lisa Crossland, formerly Passage Home, now North Carolina Center for Nonprofits.
Catherine Denton, Franklin County Arts Council.
Laura Dilley, Table.
Nicole Dozier, North Carolina Justice Center.
Sean Edmond, Prevent Child Abuse Rowing.
Ann Ehlers, North Carolina Health News.
Scott Ferris, Family Promise of Wake County.
Rosalind Fulton, Community Theater of Greensboro.
Sherelle Gales, Autism Unbound.
Ash Ham, Equality NC. Jennifer Herman, Operation Excel. Andy Hill, Mountain True. Kendra Johnson, Equality North Carolina Foundation.
Monica Kearney, Safe Space Incorporated.
Anna Kuchagova, ACLU of North Carolina.
Julie Lanford, Cancer Services.
Layton, Canines for Service.
Michelle Lewis, Life Around the Table.
Jane Liebscher, United Way of Greater High Point.
Delmancy, YWCA of High Point, Latino Family Center.
Andres Mondragon, Family Service of the Piedmont.
Harry Moses, Table.
Veronica Okler, Clean Water for North Carolina.
Laura Owen, Hospice of Davidson County.
Thomas Ray, the Post Center for Health Education.
Deb Harris Richardson, YWCA of Greensboro.
Alicia Richmond, Thread Capital and the North Carolina Rural Center.
Rebecca Slay, NC Association of Independent Schools.
Angela Street, Downtown Belmont Development Association.
Lotsy Sutton, KCC Community Development Center.
Orion Sylvester, Corporation of Guardianship.
Ashton Tippins, Table.
Gerard Truesdale, Crossroads Pathways to Success Incorporated.
Elizabeth Underwood, UNC Asheville.
Cheryl Ann Welsh, East Coast Greenway Alliance.
Mike Yao, Fellowship Hall in Greensboro, North Carolina.
All right, let's give all of ourselves a hand clap for that. That is our roll call and the conferring of our certificates. You can now turn your ghost tassel. You can now turn your tassel. Congratulations to everyone. Rebecca?
Yes, thank you all. We're going to go ahead and jump into the video, and then we'll follow it up with some quick class photos, and we'll close out our session today. So with that, I'll go ahead and begin our video.
Greetings and welcome to the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits Nonprofit Management Institute graduation celebration this spring 2021. We are so excited for you that you have completed our Nonprofit Management Institute and that you will be able to share what you have learned in your local community and within, of course, your nonprofit organization. We look forward to more exchanges with you in the future. And we are happy that we are bringing this virtual graduation celebration to you. So sit back and relax and enjoy. We are celebrating you.
What I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute was an opportunity to practice my skills in a safe space. In this cohort, I was able to meet a number of individuals and I felt safe and okay to not necessarily have all the answers ready for my nonprofit, but feeling comfortable that I could lean on my team members and the coaching from Dr. Palmer to get me the solutions that I needed and to give me the space and time to be able to think and dream and plan, which is something that as leaders, a lot of times we don't have an opportunity to do. In the Nonprofit Management Institute, this really gave me an opportunity to sharpen my sword and to feel more a part of the collective body of the nonprofit sector here in the Triangle. And I've just enjoyed the entire experience.
I really valued the knowledge and expertise of the other participants that were involved in the Institute. Just the small group interactions and the questions everybody had was a real rich experience.
Three things that I loved about this institute were the format. It was practical, informative, and presented with knowledge and passion. Number two was the collegial energy. And number three was the principles and practices guide used as the framework for the whole institute. It was wonderful.
Hello. Well, for me, some of the most valuable things that I've learned in the Institute is everything. As I shared before, I was brand new to the nonprofit world. And so this was actually a pretty cool way to get a glimpse of everything that comes with the territory. So it's been fun.
I'm grateful for this Management Institute for so many reasons. In some nonprofit for over almost a quarter of the century, and some of that time in management, I still learned so much from Dr. Palmer around best practices and other tips things that include stages of the organization, board governance, fundraising, and other things that were just so valuable for me. And I think a bonus would be not only to remain connected to the center, but also to my fellow graduates, with whom I was able to share things and learn from them as well.
I really appreciated the opportunity to go through the step-by-step kind of assessing where our organization is within that framework of looking at, are we building or are we all the way up to sustaining? And I think that was really a helpful experience for me.
I chose to answer the question around the 3 things that I love best about the Institute. And because I'm a communicator by trade, I decided on the 3 C's. And so that would be, I love the content that we are learning. I love the connections that I'm making. And I love the courage of all the participants who are putting themselves out there to do good work in the communities.
Monica Kearney. I'm the Executive Director of Safe Space Incorporated, located in Franklin County, North Carolina. One of the many things that the Institute taught me is how to enhance board governance. The Principles and Practice Guide offered the opportunity to reflect upon current operational practices and really strategize areas of growth within the organization. And that was one of the things that I learned that was the most benefit to me as the executive director, is being able to take information from the guide and learn ways that we can grow as an organization and then strategize collectively with other team members that participated in the Institute, how to apply the things that we've learned from our participation.
What do I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute? Well, I value definitely their high level of integrity, accountability, responsible stewardship, and also teaching us the valued plan for sustainability. What's something that the nonprofit management has taught me? Well, it's taught me, one, how to strengthen my strategic plan. That's something that would typically probably sit on the shelf. They mission-driven in a way because of a particular grant you may try to apply for, and how to plan and cultivate a donor base. How has this experience guided you as a nonprofit leader, manager? Well, it has guided me to think more about how to review program and planning and evaluation, and making sure that from a different set of eyes and a different viewpoint than I have had in the past. It's taught me how to make sure it's important to have communication between board and staff so that all have input, and how to improve our community assessment to make sure that we're offering the community what it is that they need and not what it is that we think they need.
Hello, everyone. My name is Perla Yala. I'm the Chief Operations Officer in Communities and Schools of Chatham County. I wanted to take this course in CIS Nonprofit Management Institute. I learned a lot about the board governance, strategic planning, and budget, and it helped a lot because that's what I'm currently learning right now in the agency.
One of the things that I'm always looking for in nonprofit work and in the nonprofit industry is accountability partners. How can we make sure that the work we are doing is the best possible work we can do with the most equitable lens? How can we internalize our external missions to make sure that the places that we're working at, the places that we're leading, the policies we're implementing, the structures we're putting into place, the bones we're creating, the boards we're setting up, are places that people want to work and want to be a part of, are places that people feel seen and heard and valued in their work so that they can do the best work of their lives. This Nonprofit Management Institute has afforded me an opportunity to be a part of an incredible cohort of colleagues with a wealth of leadership experience and energy for doing good work all across the state. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity to be connected to these folks, to stay connected to these folks, and to continue those conversations with my new accountability partners.
Hello, this is Mike Yao, the president and CEO at Fellowship Hall here in Greensboro. Just a quick shout out to the Nonprofit Management Institute for the time and effort y'all have put into putting together this training for us as a group. I think there's great benefit to training. I've been appreciative of the amount of people who have attended and how widespread the group has been from across the state. So I hope that you will continue to offer these trainings, and I look forward to seeing you all the next time we get together. Thanks much.
What a great opportunity to be able to participate in the Nonprofit Management Institute. Wow, I thought I knew some things, and I do know some things, but now I really know a lot. Thanks to Pam Palmer and the easily understood manner in which she teaches and facilitated the sessions. Despite the fact that the event was virtual and I am much more a face-to-face communicator, I gained so much, learned so much that I can apply real-world application to my job. I learned that I've got some work to do, and it is a little overwhelming. I know my strategic planning has got to be done. My board needs some work. The financial piece, I'm still working on. But now, thanks to the Nonprofit Management Institute, I've got the tools. I've got a handbook. I've got a real guide. And the conversations that we had, the breakout sessions that we did, I can go back and I can pull from those and actually apply those to my organization.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad I participated in the Nonprofit Management Institute. The principles and practices we covered, from board governance to strategic planning, are all critical to my success as a nonprofit leader. I really believe that this was time well spent. Every topic we covered was extremely important, and I encourage all nonprofit leaders to participate in a cohort of the Nonprofit Management Institute. Thank you, North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, for bringing this program to us.
Congratulations to the second graduating class of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofit Management Institute. You have chosen to take the time to learn skills, to develop your skills, to become a more effective practitioner and leader in our nonprofit sector. We thank you for that. The work you do every day is so important. We would also like to thank our sponsors and supporters, partners in this learning opportunity, the Triangle Community Foundation and the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium. We also want to thank our instructor and facilitator, Dr. Pamela Palmer. And I would like to recognize the centers team led by Rebecca Beck, with support from Leslie Morales and Tracy Carriette. We are here for you to support your learning so that we together can become a more effective nonprofit sector. Thank you for all you do every day. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you all for participating in that. Lots of rounds of applause. Well done. I know sometimes it's hard to listen to yourself and watch yourself talk on something like that. So well done. Thank you for being a part of that. Before we take quick class photos, I did want to just piggyback a little bit on what Kelly mentioned about the 3 C's and tie it into membership with the center. About 75% of you all are already members of the center. But for those of you that aren't, I did just want to give a final plug in terms of content. We've got that, and we're continuing to add to that. So this is your resource hub for all things nonprofit, we hope, and we hope you'll come to us for that. The connections that you get through the North Carolina Center for Nonprofit, we hope will continue to bolster you as leaders and to help give you that courage that Kelly talked about too, courage to lead and courage to be bold as you go forward. So with that, congratulations. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and do quick screenshots. I'm going to put first the survey for today's session in the chat. So you can start to do that if you'd like. And I've got 3 screens here. You do not need to be in the class photo. If you'd like to, please show your video. And we'll go ahead and do quick screenshots. We'll compile all these photos together into one class photo that will be sent with your certificate. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna hide my chat here and my participant list, close that. So I can get a full screen here of everyone's beautiful faces. And I'm on the first screen here. I'm gonna go ahead and get our screenshot. I'll tell you when. All right, our first screen here. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Okay, let's go ahead and get our second one. Looks like we only got 2 because I made it real nice and big. All right, let me grab this here. Second screen here. If you'd like to show your video, you may, to be included in the photo. Wonderful. All right, 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. You guys are pros at that. So once again, thank you all for being a part of this experience. I know that I'm so grateful to Dr. Palmer and Jean for being a part of this session, Tamika being behind the scenes and being a part of these sessions, Leslie, my right hand in all of this. And also want to say a quick welcome to Lisa, who's joining the team as of today. We're so delighted to have you. And a quick thanks to Ivan for being a part of today's graduation session and for offering such wonderful, wonderful guidance to all of us and being such a leader that you are for the center and for NCCJ and the nonprofit sector. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out, look for a final wraparound email, and we'll be mailing out your certificates and class photos. And we'll be sending more details about staying connected as well. So thank you all again. Congratulations and well done. Y'all can unmute and say goodbye if you'd like.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Well
you.
done, well done.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Giselle. Bye, Angela. Bye, Deb. Bye, Andres. Bye, Deb. Thank you.